History, as we know it, is a carefully curated story. We are taught that the 19th century was the pinnacle of human ingenuity, a time when steam, coal, and muscle birthed the modern world. But when you look at the physical evidence left behind, the math simply stops working. There is a massive structural anomaly hidden in the 1800s, and it points to a conclusion that most people aren't ready to face. We didn't build the 19th century, we inherited it. If you travel to any major city in the world today, be it Philadelphia, Buenos Aires, or Moscow, you will find massive, ornate stone structures with precision-cut granite, towering domes, and columns that weigh dozens of tons. According to official records, these were built in the mid-1800s by people who, at the time, were still using horse-drawn carts and handsaws. The logistics are impossible. To build these structures today, we require heavy-duty cranes, diamond-tipped cutting tools, and a massive power grid. Yet we are told that pioneers and settlers arrived in empty lands and within just a decade or two erected entire neoclassical metropolises while simultaneously fighting wars and famines. Consider the empty street phenomenon. When we look at the earliest photographs ever taken of our world's great cities in the 1850s and 60s, something is deeply unsettling. You see grand architecture, vast boulevards, and sophisticated infrastructure, but the streets are desolate. There are no people, no horses, no construction equipment. For cities that were supposedly booming with industrial activity, they look more like abandoned movie sets. Mainstream historians argue that long exposure times blurred the people out, but that doesn't explain why the mud-caked roads show no tracks, or why we see pristine, finished buildings in the middle of unpaved, primitive wastelands. It suggests these cities were already there, waiting to be rediscovered. Then there is the mystery of the buried windows. All across the globe, we see a recurring architectural anomaly. Buildings with their first floors or basement windows halfway underground. This isn't just a design choice, it looks like a global event, a massive flood of earth and silt partially buried a pre-existing civilization. We call it the mud flood. If you look at the Capitol buildings in America or the palaces in Europe, you'll see magnificent arched windows that are cut off by the pavement. When these buildings are renovated, excavators often find that the basements are actually full floors with finished doors and ornate pillars. It implies that the people of the 1800s weren't builders, they were excavators. They found a buried world, dug it out, and claimed it as their own. Look at the World's Fairs of the late 19th century. These events are the ultimate smoking gun. In cities like Chicago, St. Louis, and San Francisco, massive temporary cities were supposedly built in less than 2 years. These fairs featured hundreds of colossal stone buildings, enormous lagoons, and sophisticated electrical grids that didn't officially exist yet. Then, as soon as the fairs ended, they were burned down or demolished. The official story is that they were made of staff, a mixture of plaster and hemp. But looking at the photographs, the scale and detail are far beyond temporary decorations. It is much more likely that these were the final unsuppressed looks at the old world's technology before it was systematically destroyed to reset the human narrative. Why hide this? Because history is the ultimate tool of control. If you convince a population that they are the most advanced generation to ever exist, they will never look back for the technology they lost. The 1800s was a period of the Great Reset. By erasing the memory of the previous global civilization, one that likely used atmospheric energy and harmonic resonance, the new power structures could establish a monopoly on energy, medicine, and education. We were given a story of gradual progress to hide the fact that we were living in the ruins of something far superior. The 19th century was not an era of creation, it was an era of repopulation. The orphan trains that moved hundreds of thousands of children across America during this time suggest a massive displacement of the young who could be easily re-educated into a new false history. They were taught that their ancestors were primitive, that the steam engine was the height of technology, and that the massive buildings they lived in were built by their own fathers. Once you see the anomalies, the buried windows, the empty streets, and the impossible timelines, you can never unsee them. The evidence isn't hidden in a secret vault. It's standing in plain sight in our downtown areas and our historical archives. We are a species with amnesia, walking through the corridors of a forgotten giant. It's time to stop reading the script they gave us and start looking at the stones, because the stones don't lie.